It's Wednesday. Welcome to another episode of Ecoville. I'm your host, Nonsikelelo Kwaka. Today on the program, we're joined by Shamiso Winnet Mupara, who is the founder and executive director of Environmental.This Zimbabwe, an environmental non-governmental organization that aims at promoting sustainable forest resources management and waste management in Zimbabwe. This organization also has a special program that promotes planting of indigenous medicinal and fruit trees. Let's welcome Shamiso to the program so she can give us insights into this and other stories. Welcome to the program, Shamiso.
Thank you.
So firstly, you can start by giving us a brief background on yourself and what inspired you to establish Environmental.This Zimbabwe.
Okay. Our life was really centered on forest. We would get almost everything from our forest, for example, firewood, construction materials, medicines, food. So you see that for us growing up, forest was everything. And with time, our forest started disappearing. Because we were also cutting down trees for construction material and for firewood, most of our forests were disappearing. The cutting down of trees was not matched with any efforts to replant more trees. So at some point, I realized that our forests were almost gone. And this is what inspired me to start Environmental.This Zimbabwe. Really, what I had in mind was to replenish or to replace all the lost forests that we had actually, deforested over the years.
So what are the objectives of your organization?
I would say the main objective is to ensure that there's sustainable use of forestry resources for the benefit of the communities living around the forest, especially the economic benefits that can be driven from non-timber products. If we can benefit from trees without actually cutting them, this is what we need.
So one of your objectives is to introduce educational programs and community projects aimed at increasing awareness of the pillars of development. Have you been able to achieve this objective?
Yes, we have actually been able to achieve this objective. I can safely say, ever since we started in 2012, we have actually planted over 10,000 trees in communities. We also have introduced educational programs. We have done education and awareness campaigns in Marange, Matabeleland North, Harare, and Mash East. Currently, we are working with over 20 schools in the reforestation project, and also we are working with various communities in tree planting efforts. In addition to that, we also have introduced capacity building trainings. Beekeeping is something that we are actually working on in the Marange community to ensure that communities benefit economically from forest, but without actually cutting them. The beekeeping project has seen more trees being planted as communities need more nectar for their bees.
As you've highlighted that your organization was established in 2012, and you planned on promoting the planting of indigenous trees throughout the country by 2050. How many trees have you been able to plant under this initiative?
Like I said, we have planted over 10,000 trees, and we are planning to plant more in years to come. Our tree planting are mainly focused on native trees. Native trees, they provide us with medicines, they are drought resistant, and also they hold a lot of cultural, information for the Zimbabwe people. So all that is being lost when trees are promoted more than native trees. Our plan is to make sure that as our children are growing, they are more aware of our native trees for their benefits. If you ask a child about oranges, apples, they know all those fruits. But when you ask a child with tubu, the next thing is tubu chi, the masau chi. You see,
they have no idea.
Tombori, tambati. Yes, they have no idea about all those things. So it's how best can we reintroduce all those native trees and their benefits to our children, way of upholding the Zimbabwean culture.
Right, you are talking about native, like you were saying, native medicinal, replenishing our food forests. But you'll be shocked to know that people don't even understand what is a native tree, what are food forests, and why is it even important to regrow all these trees?
Okay, native trees, or rather indigenous trees, these are trees of, let me say native plants. These are plants that are found locally or that are original to Zimbabwe or to Southern Africa. Whereas exotic trees, these are trees that are brought from outside, which it could be outside Southern Africa, it could be outside the continent. For example, your apples, your oranges, your jacarandas, the African flame lily trees. All these are exotic trees that are brought into Zimbabwe. Then we look at our own indigenous trees, our musasa, mutiti, mubve, muyuni, all these are native trees or native plants. To promote our native trees as for food forests, it's actually going back to basics. To say before agriculture or organized agriculture was practiced in Zimbabwe, our ancestors were nomads. And they never used to grow anything. Rather, they were getting all their food from the food forest or from the forest. So you find that they would eat a lot of forest resources. For example, your mopani, your arurwa, mbeva, your baobab leaves. I remember cooking baobab leaves as derere, your majuru. All those are native. There are forest resources that are mostly found in our native forest. You also have your mushrooms that grows under the muombo trees. So we are trying to go back to basics to say all the agriculture food or the organized agriculture food that are growing, they use a lot of fertilizers, a lot of chemicals, and some of them, they are well processed such that they don't even have any nutritional value. And this is what we are feeding our children. This is what we are feeding the nation with. Why not go to basics whereby we eat nutritional food from the food forest, which is healthy. It has also medicinal values, so that we promote food security and nutrition at a household level. I also need to add that most native trees, they need less management, or native plants, they need less watering. They need you hardly spray them with chemicals because they're drought resistant. They are also disease and pest resistant. So that way, you know what you are eating, and it's healthy and it doesn't have so many chemicals that could be harmful to our health. So we're actually going back to gathering. Yes. That's like our acceptance. Okay. So in which provinces have you started this program, and what trees have you planted? Okay, we are working in 4 provinces. We have done works in Harare, Mashonaland East, Manicaland, and Matabeleland North. And as usual, like I said, we promote indigenous trees. So we have planted several indigenous trees. Mubve, muyuni. We have planted several mutiti, sringa, the white sringa, which is mutua. We all have planted all those trees, amongst others, the native trees that we are promoting. All right. So I wanted to clarify, earlier on you said you've managed to plant like 10,000 trees. Is this throughout the country, and are you focusing on indigenous trees only? It's actually in 4 provinces that I mentioned, that these are the 4 provinces that we are working in. That's where we have planted all those trees. And yes, we are planting indigenous trees. Okay. So do you think communities in Zimbabwe understand the importance of preserving indigenous trees? I think that's I would say yes and no at the same time. I think most communities have never really thought of planting native trees for the longest time. There has always been a promotion of exotic trees. Like I said, that you find that most reforestation work or landscape restoration work that has happened in Zimbabwe promoted your gum trees, your pine trees, your oranges, your apple trees at the expense of native trees. So when we started this reforestation project in most rural communities, you would go and say, no, tunakusima mve. And everyone is like, who plants mve? Tunakusima mtondo. You see, you know, that kind of a thing. We have had communities who say, because it's a native tree. Yet the same communities are benefiting financially from those new trees, from those baobab. Go into shops, go into the streets of Harare or Mutare. They're selling
all
baobab
getting sold, yes.
Yes, even Kukanda, even our big shops, our Spa, our Pick and Pay, they're selling baobab powder. You see, we have commercialized native trees and their products, yet we don't think of actually planting them. If someone is selling an orange, it's natural for someone to say, okay, they're selling an orange, so we need oranges. But you're selling baobab powder, but you're not thinking of planting a baobab tree. You're selling knee. Yes, you're selling knee, you're selling masao, but nobody thinks of, planting all those trees. So when we went into communities, there was that resistance to say, no, we'd rather have oranges, kanamanachis, you know how it is. Because those trees are supposed to grow on their own. So for the longest time, we thought native forests, they regenerate on themselves. Meanwhile, it's not true. There are factors that are coming into play that are forcing native trees to dwindle. For example, we are cutting more than we are planting. So because of that reason, native trees are disappearing. Number two, climate change. There is too little rains, change of seasons and all that. It has made our native trees to fail to rejuvenate fully. Also, veld fires. You find that all the young plants that grow during the rain season, all the native tree seeds that germinate during the rain season, they are all gutted down by fires around between July and October of every year. For that reason, native trees are failing to replenish. There is need for human intervention for them to replenish. This is why we need, as communities, to replant native trees. When we went into communities first, it was like, But as the project went on over the years, most community members have actually said, no, it's actually a tree. A native tree can actually be grown in a nursery and be planted at your house and it grows. So I think partly why trees were not really being promoted is because people didn't know how to grow them. Most people knew how to grow your exotic trees, but they didn't know how to grow native trees. So we started gathering seeds, mukamba, minyi, misau, mitsubvu, mve, and gather communities to say, no, this is how you grow your native trees. Just seed it like a normal seed. It grows. Keep it in a nursery 2 to 3 years. Plant it at your own house. Communities have seen native trees actually growing from our nurseries, and they are happy now to actually plant the very same trees at their own houses. So when we started, there was a bit of resistance, but I think it emanated from a lack of knowledge of how it's done. Now that they know how it's done, we have seen communities who would say, Dr. Simon Kamba yangu, how do I do it? I've picked my Mutondo seeds. How do I do it? So it's actually catching up. The need to plant trees and the desire is actually catching up with a lot of communities.
With the work you've done so far, do you feel like communities are benefiting from planting these native trees?
Planting of a native tree does not bring instant benefits. Take, for example, a baobab can start producing fruit after 20 years, 25 years. But when you plant it with knowledge that at some point it will benefit us, even if you're not planting it for yourself, you need to plant it for the next person. But you will see that there are communities who actually have planted like your fast growing native trees, like your acacias, your Kenyan croton, which is a relief to many women who walk long distances to look for firewood. Imagine if you have your woodlot of acacia trees or your Kenyan croton. Yes, it means you have all your trees or your firewood nearby. You can actually spend less than 30 minutes gathering your firewood. Then you dedicate the whole day to do other things. You'll find that most women in the rural areas, they spend more than 2 to 3 hours or even more going to look for firewood in the mountains and coming back. It takes up the whole day for them. But once you have your woodlot at home, you gather your firewood quickly and you have enough time to do other things. Either you do other economic activities or you just rest. Who doesn't want to just sit under a tree and rest?
We all do. We all do.
Yes.
So at least we're looking at short-term and long-term benefits if you plant different varieties, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So how are you involving local communities in the exercise? Because when you said most of the time people cut down or not be keen on planting native trees because they don't have an understanding about the species. So how are you involving local communities and why is it important to do that?
Communities on the project. If you bring a project to a community that you don't have buy-in of the community, it won't take off. We usually have challenges whereby an organization comes to a community with a well-written project and actually kind of force it on the community. If that's not what the community needs at the time, then that project won't take off. So what you need to do when you have a new project coming through, you need to start sitting down with the community, ask them what they would rather have, what are their needs and what project would meet those needs. That way, you are together with the community right from the inception of the project. After that, then the community, they realize that something that will benefit us, this is our own project, and we need to embrace it. In addition to that, you also need to bring in other people who would help to raise awareness on certain issues. For example, in most of our work, we work with Forestry Commission. They've been a very good partner in helping, spread the word. They've been doing this work for the longest time. They know better. They know what works in different communities. So we engage Forestry Commission when we are doing forestry, education and awareness programs. They teach communities about the need to protect forests. They teach communities about how to raise native nurseries. In addition to that, they also teach communities about the Forestry Act. What's in that act and what does it mean for communities? Are you allowed to cut down a tree? Would you tell that you want to cut down a tree? When you want to, all those things, we have actually been able to take that to the communities as a way of raising more awareness. We also have engaged EMA in our education and awareness campaigns, especially where water resources are contained. You will find that most rivers in communities, they are drying up. We don't have perennial rivers anymore. All our rivers have become seasonal rivers because of mismanagement of water resources. So we brought Emma, or we bring in Emma to teach more about wetlands, about rivers, about wells, all those things that are important for the community because communities need water. So these are the approaches that we have been using to make sure the community really understand the need to protect their natural resources.
Okay, that's good that you're bringing in a lot of stakeholders and their collaborative efforts and also working with the community in planting these native trees. So lastly, in 10 years' time, what do you hope to achieve as an organization?
We hope to grow Environmental.This Zimbabwe as a regional enterprise that will ensure that communities in rural areas can benefit economically, socially, and environmentally from sustainable use of natural resources.
Thank you, Shamiso, for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me on the program.
Your environmental advocacy work is very commendable, and we hope Environmental.This Zimbabwe will grow and you will keep your programs growing and we'll see more people planting indigenous trees.
It's all teamwork. The Environmental.This family is quite a large family. I would not have done it without my team or our team. We have teams in Matabeleland North. We have teams in Marange. We have teams in Mash East. We have also teams in Harare. They all make these things happen. Whenever we need something done, they are, trained. They are dedicating their 200% energy to the planting of native trees. So I would also want to, take this opportunity to thank the EBZ family, all the volunteers, all the employees for doing a splendid job in spreading the green word to communities.
That's great, man. Keep going, and we really need that, especially in the face of climate change. We need more trees.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you again to all our listeners. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow us on our social media pages. Our handle is EcovilleZW on all platforms. Join us next week for another episode. I'm your host, Nosigelelo Kwaka.